Good morning, students. Today we will continue with our chapter 2, the flower. Till now we have studied about pollination and the types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Today we will study which agents help in cross-pollination. The cross-pollination takes place by various external agents like wind, water, and insects. Pollination by wind. In some plants like maize and wheat, the pollen grains are produced in a large quantity. These pollen grains are dry and light in weight. As the flowers of these plants get matured, the pollen grains are blown away by the wind. Some of these pollen grains fall on the stigma of the flower of same type, thus resulting in pollination. In the aquatic plants, the pollination is done by the help of water. In the plants like Hydrilla and Vallisneria, the male flowers are completely submerged in water. On maturity, they get detached and float on the surface of water. The female flower that has a long stalk also floats on the surface of the water. When a male flower moving with the water current comes in contact with the female flower, the pollen grains fall on the stigma, thus leading to the pollination. The pollination by insects. Some of the insects like bees and butterfly collect the nectar from flowers. When these insects alight on a flower or sit on a flower, the pollen grains stick to their bodies. When they visit another flower, the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma, thus leading to the pollination. For example, orchids, harsingar and salvia. These flowers have brightly colored petals to attract the insects. They produce nectar, they are sweet smelling, and the pollen grains and stigmas of these. Differences between self-pollination and cross-pollination. The differences between self-pollination and cross-pollination. The transfer of pollen grains that takes place from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. Cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen grains that take place from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same type. Self-pollination, external pollinating agents are not required. In cross-pollination, external pollinating agents like water, wind and insects are required. In self-pollination, the flowers need not be large, showy and scented. In cross-pollination, the flowers should be large, showy and scented. After reaching the stigma, the pollen grain develops a pollen tube which carries a male cell on its tip. The pollen tube travels through the style and reaches the ovule inside the ovary. The ovule contains female cells. When the male cell through the pollen tube reaches the ovary, it unites with the female cell. As a result, a single cell zygote is produced, which later develops into a new plant. So, fertilization is the process of fusion of male and female cell. As a result of fusion of male cell and female cell, the zygote is produced. There are certain changes which take place in different parts of the flower after fertilization. The petals, stigma and anthers, they dry up and fall off. The sepal often dry up and stay attached. Ovary it develops into fruit. Ovary wall, it develops into fruit wall. And ovule, they develop into seed. Fruit. A fruit is the mature and the ripened ovary which is developed after the completion of pollination and fertilization. A fruit contains an outer fruit wall or pericarp and the seeds. The structure and the thickness of the pericarp or the outer wall may vary from fruit to fruit. Fruits are of many types. Dry fruit. When the pericarp of the fruit is dry, then it is called a dry fruit. All the nuts are the examples of the dry fruit. Fleshy fruit. When the entire pericarp or its part becomes fleshy and juicy on ripening, then it is called a fleshy fruit, like mango and papaya. Simple fruit. Simple fruits are those which develop from a single ovary, like cherry, mango, peach, pear, etc. Aggregate fruits, which develop from a single flower which has many ovaries, and each ovary gets fertilized separately. Example, strawberry and blackberry. The multiple fruits, they develop from a cluster of flowers borne on a single structure. Example, pineapple and fig. This may be also classified as true fruit and a false fruit. The true fruit develops from a mature and ripened ovary. The false fruit develops from other parts of the flower except ovary. It is not produced from the ovary. Apple is an example of the false fruit because it develops from the thalamus of the flower. Gourd, cucumber, pineapple and jackfruit are also the examples of the false fruits. In the fleshy fruits, the pericarp is divided into three parts. The epicarp, which is the outer thin and leathery part, which forms the tough outer skin of the fruit. Initially it is green in color, but when ripens it becomes colored other than green. The mesocarp, it is a sweet, fleshy and the edible part of the fruit. And the endocarp, which is the hard and woody part of the fruit that usually contains seeds. Now, what are the functions of a fruit? The fruit protects the seed from the extreme environmental conditions. It also stores the food material. It attracts the birds and animals for the seed dispersal to different places far away where in suitable climatic conditions they can grow in new plants. Thank you.